Alena, how are you doing?
Hey guys, how are you? Hi from Prague, Czech Republic.
Good to
Yeah,
see you.
how's everything over there?
Czech Republic is pretty much almost back to normal. While we still keep hearing that new wave of COVID is coming, but there's a running joke saying, don't ask a doctor, ask a politician when the COVID is coming. So, but everything pretty decent in here. I visited Germany recently, which is much more strict, and it was kind of like going back in time a little bit. And it's interesting to see how Europe is, there's no Schengen area practically.
Hmm.
There's one little moment, and the freedom of movement and the freedom of transfer, sending posts is difficult. It's like all gone in no time. So interesting times in Europe. And I believe you have interesting times in the US as well.
Yeah. From a human rights perspective, what we're watching in Eastern Europe is sort of historic. We're seeing authoritarianism on the rise in Serbia, where there's all kinds of emergency laws. Whether or not you think they are a fair reaction to COVID or an overreaction is kind of irrelevant, but we can be descriptive and describe what's happening, which is a crackdown on civil liberties. We're obviously watching Orban in Hungary continue to consolidate power. We saw, obviously an election in Poland, which again, was it free or fair? Unclear, but the authoritarian kind of, establishment continues its march there. And now we're watching like people power uprisings in Belarus and even in Russia that, it's unclear whether they'll be successful. But right now we're kind of sitting at this historical moment of a resurgence of authoritarianism in Eastern Europe. And we're wondering, what it feels like to be in the middle of it in the Czech Republic and what your perspective is on it. It's a very special time.
In a lot of aspects, it felt like a deja vu.
Mm-hmm.
For us. We, lived over 4 decades in a totalitarian regime.
Mm-hmm. To which you were born under this regime?
I was born in Czechoslovakia. For those who don't know, now I live in Czech Republic, but people here seem to, two important things. People seem to, because we are used to scarcity, oppression, a ban on travel, ban even on expression, we kind of got quickly into the mode of behaving well and according to what the governments told us to do. Mm-hmm. So there was a moment where the Prime Minister of Czech Republic banned private companies that would produce masks and sanitizing, gels. Mm-hmm. They banned them to sell to public. They had to sell everything to the government, which is practically nationalization within one night. At the same time, they imposed a mandatory wearing of face masks to the people. And they were like, well, where do we get the masks, right? So people started to produce masks, and I bought some masks thanks to Bitcoin from my friends in Hong Kong, and people started to kind of react. But it was a bit painful for me to see how quickly people got in line. At the same time, how they could pull together to overcome the burdens.
So even in the Czech Republic, even in Prague, which we don't hear about a lot lately in terms of, backsliding with authoritarianism, you're saying even there's like whiffs of nationalization, emergency powers.
Exactly. Similar in Germany. Germany faced the first weeks of the COVID crisis, and immediately the government let hear themselves that they may consider nationalizing some strategic businesses.
Yeah.
European Central Bank created this PPP, I forgot what's the exact name, but it's basically a bailout program of 750 billion euros. And this time it's not to buy up the public assets, it's to buy up public and private assets without any limits and in a more, let's say, more adaptive way, so there are no strict rules. In other words, okay.
1 year ago, we gathered in California to write the Little Bitcoin book, and I don't think we could have predicted what a fertile soil it would be this summer, right, Jimmy?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you already mentioned how Bitcoin is affecting the place. But with all of this authoritarianism sort of sweeping Eastern Europe in a sense, how's Bitcoin doing?
Well, if you so the thing is, there was new anti-money laundering directive implemented from January 2020 within the European nations, and this directive, by the way, all the AML directives for EU are being suggested by the European Commission, which is a unelected political organization. Okay, so it's interesting because US has a very similar situation with the Fed.
Right.
Right, and they're shaping the financial.
And this commission covers everyone from Spain to the Czech Republic to Serbia to England.
And so they propose directives, and those directives get validated on the commission, on the community level, and on the EU level, and then each country should has some 2 years to adapt to their national law. What happens, however, that even if the directive is smoother and more easy on certain points, some countries just implement such harsh conditions that it's really difficult to comply. So what is happening in Bitcoin in Europe, that awesome services like Get Bitter get closed or have to close down or decided to close down because they are incapable to fulfill all the conditions that otherwise huge corporations are meeting.
The KYC paperwork.
Not just KYC, not just know your customer, but reviewing the history of the transactions, making sure where the money is coming from, all the anti-money laundering. Now,
so they're creating like a huge kind of like incentive for chain analysis companies to get fat off contracts.
That's one thing. Another thing is if you are any cryptocurrency service provider, you need to have a compliance officer, lawyers, internal processes. That's impossible to do in practical for a small company.
We saw our friends at BottlePay unfortunately close their doors earlier this year for this very reason.
Yes. And so Germans and Dutch implemented it terribly. I think others will follow suit, and so I'm pretty hopeful about companies, I shouldn't use the word companies because those are services and decentralized communities such as Hodl or BISC.
Okay.
And I hope to see more and more of these. And I also hope to see like companies doing some smaller do-it-yourself, for example, self-service with one of my favorite projects in the recent past is the Bleskomat. It's a small box that you can build on yourself, and it's providing Lightning Network ATM. So basically some small merchants can set it up easily in their own restaurants without using any other service. They can be selling sats via. So people are coming up with do-it-yourself and decentralized services to overcome these burdens.
You're describing an amazing kind of like a mirror image of what freedom fighters had to do in your country in the 60s and 70s in Havel's time, right? They had to live the parallel life, right? They had to have the parallel city. So you're describing that that's probably going to happen across Europe, where people are going to be forced to use decentralized open source software. But hey, that's what we're here for.
And
I'm curious, what are there people that are using Bitcoin to store their wealth? I don't know what like inflation is like over there, or prices and things like that.
What was the question? Whether people still use Bitcoin?
Are there people using Bitcoin as a store of value?
Oh, definitely. So what I noticed since the beginning of year is people that I've been just trying to talk into their heads for years to get into Bitcoin, all of a sudden they came back to me. My 83-year-old auntie called me and asked me about how to buy Bitcoin. People that, I know that are very conservative, all of a sudden just wanted me to help them set up a wallet and get some OTC trader or ask me where to buy Bitcoin. So this is interesting. Another interesting point is that according to Fidelity analysis or report, they they found out that 45% of institutional investors in Europe own Bitcoin or some cryptocurrencies, compared to like 27% in the US. So 45% of institutions own Bitcoin. 25% of those stated an interesting reason why they do. They just want to hedge against politicians. So you have this really interesting situation where the governments do all in their capacity to prevent small and medium-sized businesses to pop up and to provide Bitcoin. At the same time, we have institutions getting into Bitcoin, right? And at the same time, it's just becoming increasingly difficult to maintain. And the governments are preparing to issue stable coins.
Right. So you were telling us before that Russia and Mr. Putin have plans to maybe start to crack down on Bitcoin, but maybe make it more sort of sexy to be in the business of offering stable coins. Tell us more about that.
So there is recently the Russian Duma, they passed a law. They already had some very, let's say, conservative stance towards Bitcoin, but now it's official that businesses cannot accept Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies as a form of payment. Peer-to-peer is possible. Well, nobody can regulate that. Yeah. But business use is not possible except for stable coins. That sends a clear message to me that Mr. Putin is preparing to issue some crypto ruble. I'm curious whether they want to work with China on this, because Russia and China already have a currency swap. It wouldn't surprise me if they kind of try to establish a new global cryptocurrency. As
a final human rights thought, I thought it was interesting just to bring up that the Russian government has come out and said that because they know if they crack down on human rights organizations' bank accounts, that those folks will just start using Bitcoin. Just because they know Bitcoin's out there as an option, they're going to not crack down on the legacy financial system as much. So it's really interesting to see Bitcoin have this sort of effect where it kind of scares the regulators. So it does, it's already making a big impact, and it's protecting people. So it's interesting to see, even in a dictatorship, that it's working.
Yep. Exactly the same happening in European Union. They burdened the market so much because they are worried that they would not be able to compete with their newly issued state cryptocurrencies. So it's coming. It is coming. Brace yourself. We need to do more educational work so that people understand the difference between a stable coin and Bitcoin. And so I hope we can voice this, and we can also voice all this, what's happening, especially from the human rights perspective, in October this year with the new Hackers Congress. That we're organizing.
Speaking of which, what are you working on these days within Bitcoin?
I'm trying to help these guys. Parallel Polis is the first Bitcoin only place in the world that me and a bunch of enthusiasts co-founded in 2014. And since 2014, each year they do a beautiful event which is called Hackers Congress. It was always focused on on-site experience. This year, the situation has shuffled the cards so much that the entire team restructured the Hackers Congress, and it will happen on site and online.
And what are the dates, Alena?
And the dates are October 2 to 4.
Great.
With the main topic.
How can people learn more?
Yes. The main topic is digital totality. Okay, so we will talk about each aspect of the totalitarian regime that is upon us. And what was it? HCPP.cz?
No, the website. What's the website?
HCPP.cz.
Perfect. All right.
Is the site to sign up.
That's a great action item for folks. Please check it out. Thank you, Alena, for joining us.
Thank you guys so much. Take care.